the United Nations was pitching the idea of basically a marine carbon tax so that every time you ship something, one of those big honkin' ships that Carson can almost see from his window, okay, into a port, you're going to be paying a carbon tax on that shipped thing. Now, what's shipped into Canada? Well, everything like bicycles and computers and iPhones and shoes and a million other things that we rely on every single day. This is the Western Roundup, a spin-off show of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation podcast, where we are still fighting for lower taxes, less waste, and more accountable government with a bit of Western flair. I'm joined by my good friends, Carson Binda. He is the BC director holding down the fort on the West Coast. Carson, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, you know what, Chris? I'm surviving. I'm staying dry despite the atmospheric river we've got rolling through Vancouver this weekend.
Did you have your avocado toast this morning, or you skip that?
Of course, I got my Gore-Tex on, trucked out to the local coffee shop, had a latte, my avocado toast, only got
I'm
a
actually
little bit drenched. Perfect West Coast morning.
You're actually making me really homesick. Okay. And Gage Hobrick, he is our prairie director. He is holding down the fort there in Saskatchewan, where he is fighting for taxpayers in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Okay. We've got a lot of serious stuff to go over here that's happening in the Western provinces, but something that would have nuked a lot of issues here in the Western provinces is a global carbon tax. Yeah. Okay. Before you start sending emails, okay? I did not make this up. Okay? It's a real thing, okay? There's even a headline about it in CNN, and it doesn't get more mainstream media globalisty than CNN. So even they were saying that this was going to be a global carbon tax. Here's the thing. The United Nations was pitching the idea of basically a marine carbon tax so that every time you ship something, one of those big honkin' ships that Carson can almost see from his window, okay, into a port, you're going to be paying a carbon tax on that shipped thing. Now, what's shipped into Canada? Well, everything like bicycles and computers and iPhones and shoes and a million other things that we rely on every single day. But interestingly, guys, and I want to have both of your perspectives on this, US President Donald Trump unsurprisingly said, hell no, we're not doing that, and apparently scuttled the whole plan. What's frustrating here is that we've got a prime minister in Ottawa who's a big fan of global carbon taxes. Mark Carney wrote a whole book that includes all sorts of chapters and stuff on global carbon taxes. Gage, I'll start with you. I know you read that thing too. Were you surprised when you saw the UN pushing for a marine shipping carbon tax?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, of course, I wasn't surprised to see all of them out there trying to find new ways to take money from taxpayers all around the world. And this kind of isn't the time this has popped up, right? Like you and Franco were doing work on this near the end of the year because Stephen Guilbeault, also big fan of carbon taxes, was talking about how great of an idea it is. You know, back then we made the same point. A carbon tax on shipping is a carbon tax on any Canadian who wants to buy anything from around the world. There's a lot of good stuff you can buy out there. So it's all it was going to do is make life more expensive for Canadians. But I think you and Franco also made the point that it's very unlikely that the Americans are going to stand for this, and that's kind of what we've seen. But it's also important then to keep highlighting that it's important to bring this information out there because a lot of taxpayers, I think rightly, aren't exactly concerned what's going on at the UN every day. So, but it's important to bring this stuff up so taxpayers know where they're going to get taxed from. And in this case, it's that global shipping carbon tax.
Carson, I had to throw it over to you. So when you were sent your ballot on who to vote for at the United Nations and which bureaucrat and politician in the United Nations that you voted for, can I ask you, like, who'd you wind up voting for, the pro or the anti-global carbon tax person?
Well, Chris, this is part of what's so ridiculous about this, right? The UN is not accountable to Canadian taxpayers, to taxpayers across the world who they want to start slapping with this international carbon tax on shipping. And you hit the nail on the head. A carbon tax on shipping is a carbon tax on absolutely everything that
Yeah.
gets to our country, that gets there on a ship. And look, one of the things that is just so frustrating about this is how dishonest they're being. Look,
Oh yeah.
they know that they can't slap consumers with a carbon tax at the pump. They
Yep.
know that they can't be transparent when they tax us on our carbon because folks won't stand for it. We saw that in Canada. Axe the tax was the closest thing we had to a national rallying cry for years under the previous government. They know that taxpayers won't take a carbon tax lying down, so they're trying to sneak all these back end carbon taxes in.
Yep.
Taxpayers won't stand if they can see it, but they think we will if they can sneak it through the back door. And that's one of the things that's just so frustrating here. Beyond the unaccountability of the United Nations, it's the dishonesty of this. They know we won't stand for a carbon tax we can see, so they just try to hide one. It's
Yeah.
just plain wrong.
I
Yeah.
think it's
Go
important to
ahead.
drop a couple numbers on there too that you and Franco talked about in the past that it's important. So when they were first talking about this global carbon tax, how great of idea it would be, and they're patting themselves all on the back while they're sitting in the New York United Nations room or wherever jet-setting location they happen to be at the time. The IMF put out some estimates of how much it's going to cost the world taxpayers, and we found out that it would cost by 2035 if they did this $200 billion dollars to the world's taxpayers. Or, in the Canada specific context, it would hurt the economy to a tune of $23.6 billion hit, right? That's not small change. I know you've talked about it a lot, Chris, when we see how much money the carbon tax, the old one, the consumer carbon tax, took from Canadians, right? It was around that $40 billion mark. So this is about half of that for a global carbon tax on shipping. It's just as expensive and it hurts people just the same.
Well, and come
Carson.
on. Like, do they want to send us back to the age of sail? Like, are we going to do transatlantic, trans-Pacific shipping with sailboats? Seriously? Like, that seems to be the type of thing that this policy is pushing. Folks, there's a reason we shifted from sailboats to boats that first used coal, now mostly use natural gas and diesel fuels. We
Yep.
can't get bananas from the Caribbean to store shelves on a sailboat. I don't think most Canadians or taxpayers around the world want to see the price of bananas go up exponentially because of this global carbon tax on shipping, and they still want to have access to bananas, which means we can't throw them on sailing ships. Like, this whole policy is just so wrong-headed. And look, I disagree with President Trump on a whole bunch of stuff. I think tariffs are a bad policy. I think free trade is the way to lift people up. But I'm glad that President
Yep.
Trump showed some spine here and said, no, we're not going to be paying into this global carbon tax on shipping. This was
Yep.
good leadership from the United States killing this policy before it could start taking a bigger and bigger chunk out of our wallets every single time we swipe our card at the grocery store.
Yeah, big time. It just would have added more cost when people can't afford it. I will remind people around 50% of Canadians are hovering at around the $200 a month mark. 200 bucks away from not being able to make the minimum payments on their bills. That means you're keeping the repo man from taking your vehicle, you're stopping the credit card guy from calling you. You haven't paid everything off, but you're within 200 bucks of not even being able to pay the minimum, okay? Like the idea of slapping a maritime carbon tax on everything that is shipped is so nuts. Like, just wherever you are listening to this podcast, look around you. Think of all the stuff that's around you that was on a ship at some point. Now add whatever that maritime carbon tax was going to cost you. Like, this Transformers coffee mug is from China. It's like 20 years old, but it was still from China. It was shipped here on a boat. Like, the coffee inside of it, we sure didn't grow it here in Canada. It came up from Central or South America. I seriously doubt, apart from the 1980s commercials I saw as a child, that it came up here on a burro. I don't think a donkey brought it up here. It probably came here on a ship. And before you say, "Oh, well, it was flown in here." The same pointy heads, okay, the globalists around the world who aren't elected by Canadian taxpayers, they're still thinking about an aviation carbon tax too. So if we start shipping stuff by plane to avoid the shipping carbon tax, guess what? we're going to wind up paying it there too. So we have to remain vigilant on this stuff. So everybody go check out what happened with the so-called marine carbon tax or the global carbon tax, as CNN called it. Do we want to shift gears here to closer to home? Do you want to go around the horn here and say what's happening in our various provinces? We know that all of us would be affected by a carbon tax, but what about specifically? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can chat about how Manitoba taxpayers have been getting screwed the last couple of years if people want some bright lights to talk about and interesting
Please
things.
do.
So basically, the Manitoba government recently released their latest sunshine data. It's just a massive spreadsheet of all the people in the Manitoba government that get paid over $100,000 a year. And I did some math with this massive spreadsheet to show out what's it's costing taxpayers. And I found out that the number of Manitoba bureaucrats and government employees that are making more than $100,000 a year has more than doubled since 2020. More than doubled, not just doubled.
What?
So in 2024, 30,675 Manitoba government employees made more than 100 grand. And that's over an 18,000 person increase since 2020.
What? Okay. That you're surprising me here, Gage. I was not expecting it to be that much. I was thinking maybe a 20% increase. You're saying it doubled since 2020?
More
More than doubled.
More than double. It's a 149% increase of people making more than 100 grand from the Manitoba government since 2020. And
Okay.
that's important for a couple of reasons. The first one is the regular Manitobans who are paying for all these huge six-figure salaries only make about $61,000 a year, right? So they're spending a big chunk of their income to pay for these bureaucratic bigwigs with their huge salaries. And second, it's driving the province deeper into debt. About 42% of the government's budget is spent on salaries and benefits. And the Manitoba government's looking at hiking the debt up to more than $37 billion by the end of the year. So, in any plan where the government actually balances the budget and starts to pay down the debt, it means trimming the fat on those huge government salaries.
Big time. Okay, so for folks who aren't aware, sunshine lists, okay, is typically the nickname, okay, or the handle that those of us in the media and politics and analysis world give to lists of bureaucrats. So people who are on the public payroll or the taxpayer payroll, if they're and they change the definition of it. In Alberta here, I think it's now over 125 thereabouts. In Manitoba, it's still over 100,000.
So the entire list that they publish is over 85, but we were
Oh,
specifically
okay.
looking at this case is who hit that over $100,000 mark because that's, a big salary. And that's what's been the doubling over since 2020.
And Carson, correct me if I'm wrong. Does BC have an official provincial carbon tax? The last one I remember looking at was more of like a National Post, Vancouver Sun kind of, it was a conglomerate. I think even UBC was helping compile it. What do you guys have for a sunshine list there?
Well, we do still have a provincial carbon tax, but onto the sunshine list. But when it comes
I
to
see your segue there.
no, but when it comes to the sunshine list, yeah, we do sort of, but it's very disjointed. So the way
Yeah.
it works is every government ministry, every government agency, school board, police board, so on and so forth, has to release a list of all their staff members who make more than $75,000.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
Yeah,
lower
it'll
than
be harder to pick through.
Alberta, lower
Yeah.
than Manitoba's cap, which is good because it gives you that broad sort of range of salaries that folks are getting. But what's really inconvenient is the fact that it's all in a million different spreadsheets
Yeah.
across all those government agencies, school boards, hospitals, so on and so forth. So what the folks at the Vancouver Sun have done, which is kudos to them, this is really impressive.
Mhm.
They've gone through a lot, not all, but most of those proactive disclosures and put them in one place. It's an online searchable database. And the journalist who puts it together was kind enough to have coffee with me a few months ago, walking us through the process that they use to crunch all those numbers. So kudos to the folks at the Vancouver Sun
Yeah,
for
no, they've
rolling
been
up
doing
their
that for
sleeves.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for rolling up their sleeves and putting it all in one place. Because it's important for folks to know it. And I mean, they bring out crown corporations that I didn't even know existed. Like one of the big surprises to me when I was scrolling through it, the most recent edition, was the CEO of PowerX, which is a wholly owned subsidiary that most British Columbians don't even know of. It's part of BC Hydro. Their CEO took home about $1.6 million last year. One
I didn't know that
bureaucrat
existed.
yeah, one bureaucrat at this obscure sort of subsidiary of a crown corporation took home $1.6 million. So we do have these proactive disclosures, but we do it in a classically West Coast kind of funky way.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Funky is a nice term. Gage, shifting back to Manitoba, was there any examples that jumped out to you? Like, I don't want to give people's home addresses or specificity at that level, but can you give us some examples of people who were making over $100,000?
Well, the biggest thing was just the overall bloat of the entire system, right? When we
Okay.
look at that spreadsheet, it's kind of difficult to get into the specific examples sometimes because there's more than 43,000 people
Oh
on
my
it in
God.
total making more than 85, and then that 31,000 making more than 100. I think the important part here is that's not really about the specific examples. It's more about the total cost that it's putting to taxpayers and how it's driving the province deeper into debt. And I think that that's another point that needs to be made. Of course, the cost is immense and it's costing taxpayers, but there's also the fairness portion here, right? So the average Manitoban is making about $61,000 a year, but they're paying their taxes to pay these huge six-figure salaries when working for the government at any salary is already a huge benefit. So to go through those numbers, right? If you're a government employee, you're making about 5% more on average than someone doing a similar job outside of the government. You get that taxpayer top up. Also, in general, you get to retire a couple of years earlier than a regular Manitoban or any other taxpayer across the country, as well as you generally have stronger job security. So we're looking at a high paid government bureaucracy that gets all of these benefits, while taxpayers on average making much less than them are the ones stuck with the bill.
What kind of response are you getting? I know you've been doing some media on this. Is there any hope that Premier Wab Kinew will lend an ear to this?
Well, taxpayers are always hoping. I did some radio this morning talking to the great Hal Anderson out in Winnipeg, a wonderful radio show. And the government has said that they want to balance the budget by 2027, right? And since the government, the biggest spending is on those salaries, we're hoping that they go in there and actually find some savings, find some efficiencies to get rid of positions they don't need to get to that balanced budget number. Because right now they're about $1 billion off of getting there. So they've got a lot of work to do. And the easiest place to start is by firing or getting rid of positions that they don't need anymore.
Did you say that they're actually planning on balancing the budget in 2027? Like they've said that?
So that's a commitment from the finance minister. When they were first elected, they said that by the end of their first term, so that'd be 2027, they're going to balance the budget. I mean, I want to be as positive as possible and hope that the government in Manitoba get to that number. But so far, every year, the deficits and the numbers they're increasing the debt by has been much higher than they budgeted said it would. So it's going to take a lot of work to get there. But taxpayers are going to keep pushing because they've made that commitment. It's the right commitment to make, but they need to do some hard work to actually finish it off.
The whole budget, or are they going to do that parlor trick that Carney's talking about and separate the operating from the capital?
So they're going to try and balance the whole budget, is what they're saying. But of course, there's always some budget trickery in there. And if it comes out that they say, oh, we did balance it with this operating surplus, you know that I'll be on the horn with as many people as I can 5 minutes from then saying, no, actually, the debt's still going up. No matter what trickery they try to play, taxpayers are going to hold them on it.
Yeah, it seems little inside baseball for our viewers and listeners because I know they actually love that. When we're covering things like fiscal updates or budgets or anything like that, I think all of us do the same thing. We grab it, we flip to the back, we run our finger down of the debt. How much are you adding to the debt? Like all of the operating versus capital and baby kissing budgets and blah, 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 blah. We're not even listening. We're going like down, we're running our finger down that column and finding out how much is being added to the debt. And we're finding out how much interest we're paying on the debt. So those are the two big numbers that bottom line matter in those budgets. So thanks for highlighting that. Did you want to shift to Carson? You actually had some good news. And
Yeah, hey, you know
people,
what? We spend a lot of time going after politicians and bureaucrats when they make the wrong decisions. But folks, hey, we've got a good news story for a change coming out of the West Coast. The city of Vancouver voted for a 0% property tax hike in this coming budget. What that means is folks aren't going to be paying more for the city next year compared to what they paid this year. Folks, that's great. That is fantastic that Vancouver taxpayers are not going to be hit with a big property tax hike this year. I know I did some Googling. I was trying to comb through major cities to see when the last time this happened. This hasn't happened in almost a decade.
Wow.
2017 in Calgary was the last time a Canadian city, a big Canadian city, voted for no property tax hike. So this is sort of a once in a decade kind of win for taxpayers. And to get it out of Vancouver, which is a city council notorious for its
Yeah.
kind of big and wild spending, well, that's just fantastic, folks.
Yeah, when you told me that, I was like, what? Like Vancouver, Vancouver? Like it isn't like northwestern corner of a Vancouver council we haven't heard about, but no, Vancouver City proper, the one on Howe Street. That one.
That's the
Okay.
one. But we need the politicians to stay strong here because already they're getting pushback and attacks from exactly the types of folks you'd expect. The Parks Board is going to war with City Council over this 0% tax hike. They're saying it's going to be all sorts of draconian rollbacks, that parks and swimming pools are going to be shuttered under this austerity budget. It's just not true. Time and time again, the mayor, the city manager, council have promised taxpayers that those kinds of core services, things like parks, aren't going to be shut down because of this 0% tax hike. There's so much bloat in Vancouver City Hall and in Vancouver City budget that they can do it without shuttering those core services. But I want to talk about the Parks Board commissioners a little bit, who are lighting their
Yeah,
hair on fire,
they
making
seem to
all
have a
these.
lot of time to light their hair on fire about a lot of things that don't involve parks. Just
Oh,
saying. Go ahead, Carson.
absolutely. But they've been padding their budget from taxpayers more and more and more every single year. So let's rewind to 2021. Back in 2021, the Parks Board spent $135.6 million dollars. That's a whole lot of cash, right? 135.6 million in 2021. This year, their budget's $183.9 million dollars. That's a 36% increase in just 3 years. For context, inflation over that same time period was about 15.4, according to the Bank of Canada. So their budget has gone up about twice as fast as inflation. And now they're lighting their hair on fire because they need to save a few $1 million because taxpayers can't afford tax hike after tax hike after tax hike. Like, come on, guys, let's settle down, do the hard work of representing the constituents you were elected to represent. We know affordability is top of mind for businesses, for families in Vancouver right now. Show you care about affordability by finding these totally reasonable savings for taxpayers. Look, CFIB, our friends at another advocacy organization, release a business barometer that
Hmm.
shows how small businesses are feeling. Time and time again, it shows that in British Columbia, taxes and fees from municipal governments are a big reason why business owners lay awake at night and why eventually they have to close their doors and shutter their businesses. The
Yeah,
best
Carson.
thing. Oh, go for it,
Oh,
Gage.
I think that that's a great point. It's something that needs to be highlighted a little bit more when we're talking about. Now, of
Yeah.
course, everyone on this call hates taxes. I don't think that that's a surprise that we want to see taxes lower. But
Yeah.
property taxes are especially gross in
Yeah.
most cases, right? Because when you pay income taxes, if you didn't work that year, you don't get that income tax bill. If you made more money, you pay more. You made less money, you pay less income tax. But for property tax, it's
Hmm.
completely reliant on what the government says that your property that you own is worth. So let's say you get a huge new assessment. The government says your building is worth $1 million, but it wasn't a good year for your business. So you didn't make as much as you thought. That changes your income tax bill. It makes that lower because you didn't make as much money. It does absolutely nothing to your property tax bill. It's still just as high or higher as it was last year, and there's nothing the business owner can do about it. And that's ridiculous.
Totally.
I wanted to jump in there really quick, Gage, with a question for you, Carson. But first, to correct myself before I get comments, sorry, it's Cambie. Cambie in West 12th is where Vancouver City Hall is. The law courts are on Howe Street.
Yeah.
Another big, beautiful building in downtown Vancouver. So, correcting myself there. Carson, and I'm sorry for questioning like out of the blue, because I don't know if you know the answer to this, because I don't know the answer to this. Is the Vancouver area like GVRD is what we used to call it, Metro Vancouver? Are they still using like best use guesstimations for their property tax? Have you heard this term before? It's the
Well,
weirdest thing.
why don't you
Okay.
walk us through this, Chris?
Okay, so they probably got rid of it. It was too nuts even for Vancouver. And I my phone stopped ringing about it, so maybe they fixed it. But way back a billion years ago, around 2017, 2018, right around when Calgary was balancing its budget, I got tons of phone calls from businesses in Vancouver that goes something like this, if you can believe it. Okay, you've got this nice little Italian restaurant building, one story in like a traditional heritage neighborhood. Okay. And instead of you being charged your business property taxes based on the one story built in the 1940s building with your Italian restaurant in it, no, some bureaucrat decides, well, that could be a 9-story condo with a whole bunch of units in it and a swimming
Right.
pool. And I'm imagining all of this, and we are basing, I'm not joking, we are basing the business property taxes on the imagination of a bureaucrat. I couldn't believe it. I
Oh,
think they call
it's
it highest and best use. Are they
right.
still doing that?
So I don't have a firm answer for you, Chris.
Okay.
This is something that I hear mentioned intermittently, kind of when Metro
Okay.
Vancouver's playing with their property taxes every year. I don't have a firm answer for you,
Okay.
but this is something I need to look into. But you raised something really important there. We're talking about the city of Vancouver here,
Correct.
not Metro Van. Metro Van is still on their spending bonanza. This is Vancouver City Hall that's reined in some of their spending. Now, I want to do one last bit of myth busting here.
Okay.
So, I've seen the bureaucrat unions, some of these advocacy organizations that take a whole lot of money from the taxpayer, saying things like, well, look, Vancouver's property tax rate as a percentage of the value of the property, oh, it's low. It's one of the lowest in the region.
Yeah, but
What a mind-numbing thing to say. Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
sorry, that is such a stupid thing to say. Like,
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
go ahead, Carson. Explain
So
why this is stupid.
this
Okay.
is stupid because property in Vancouver costs more than property in a lot of suburbs. What that means is that while the percentage of your property value might be a little bit lower that you're taxed on, the total tax bill ends up being a whole heck of a lot higher. And we've got the numbers to prove it. Vancouver homeowners and businesses pay the highest municipal tax bills in the province. Let's just look at the rest of the region here. So the median Vancouver homeowner paid $8,360 in municipal taxes and fees in 2024.
Oh,
That's
that's
compared to
disgusting.
7,340 in Surrey, 6,390 in Burnaby, or $5,670 in Delta. So, sure, the percentage might not be as high as some of those other municipalities, but that total tax bill, which is what I think most families and businesses care about, like, let's be real here. They don't care about the percentage, they care about the tax rate, the tax bill that they pay. That's what's important. So we pay the highest taxes in the region. It's long past time that City Hall stops making life so unaffordable through these constant tax hikes. I mean, they've already raised taxes by about 25% over the past 3 years. Enough is enough. Vancouver
Yeah.
taxpayers, Vancouver businesses can't afford outrageous tax hikes from City Council every year. So, Mayor Ken Sim, I have been one of your staunchest critics for your entire term in office because of a lot of dumb spending you like to do. But
Yeah,
hey,
for real. He phones me. Like Carson phones me. He's like, you won't believe what the mayor's doing now. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, absolutely. So Ken, on this, kudos. Good for you for keeping a campaign promise and not hiking taxes on Vancouver families and businesses this year.
That actually makes me so happy. I'm almost loath to bring up my topic here in Alberta. But is it okay if I go over the teacher strike with folks a little bit here? Okay, so really quickly here, I just wanted to let folks know what's happening from a Western Roundup perspective. We've got about 700,000 kids who are out of school still. We are just finishing week 3 as of the taping of this show. So they've missed 3 weeks of school. I know my daughter's in her grad year. She's missed out on the entirety of Hamlet. She's missed out huge chunks of her English class. So this is a big deal for a lot of people. We've got around 50,000 teachers who are on strike. Okay, there's big job action. Here's the thing. The Alberta government has come forward and said, we're going to spend $2.6 billion on resolving this dispute and signing y'all to another 4-year contract. According to the government, if the union had accepted this deal, it would have made Alberta teachers the highest paid in Western Canada. Okay, fresh as a daisy out of teachers college, you're starting at $71,000 a year. Plus benefits, plus vacation, plus crazy job security, especially considering what else happens here in Alberta. Okay, number 2, if you've got 7 years on the job under the rejected contract that they said no to, over 7 years, you're making over $100,000 a year already. Okay, they said no to that, on top of hiring 3,000 more teachers and 1,500 more classroom assistants. Earlier, this is what made me almost have kittens, you guys. Earlier, the government already committed to spending $8 billion building like 100 schools. I don't like the math on that, but they already agreed to do that. So this was a big offer, and the teachers union said no. Get this. They come back with, how about $2 billion more? What? What? Like, we are at the shark jumping moment of this teacher strike, okay? So it actually had me wondering, okay, we're more than $5 billion deficit this year. We're over $80 billion in debt provincially. We have unmoney. Where does this teachers union think we're going to get this money? Oh, they want us to have a PST in Alberta. I forgot about this. So I went and checked the ATA's website, Alberta Teacher Association, and sure enough, there it is. I went all the way back to 2015. They've been yelling for and begging for a PST in Alberta for years. Why? Well, because they say it'll get them $5 billion more into government coffers, and they can then spend the money on hiring more teachers for the teachers union. So we put together a big old article about it in the Edmonton Sun. It's getting me a lot of fan mail, I must say. Making a lot of friends who are supporting the teachers union bosses. But yeah, so
I've even
go
got
ahead.
some fan mail from you or for you, Chris. Your fans are reaching out.
Yeah, they're being very thorough. Was that the one, did they ask you to fire me too? Or did they just email Franco and said you should fire Chris? What was the language?
No, they asked me to fire you because apparently you've been possessed by some kind of satanic demon. That was the gist of the email. You could tell this person's real stable.
I went back through my contract. I don't know if that's cause.
No,
That's
no,
my
no, no.
boss
We
said.
should probably check with Devin, but I don't think satanic possession is a cause for termination.
Just saying. And so in all seriousness, that's when I'm like, oh, wait a minute. They've already done the math. So, okay, one, I'm legit not picking on the frontline teachers, okay? I know a lot of teachers. I grew up with teachers that meant a lot to me, okay? There's teachers who mean a lot to my kids. And they've been without pay, by the way, which is crazy. Imagine going 3 weeks with no pay. So I don't know why they're not getting paid from their strike fund, but that's the union problem. But frontline teachers, I seriously doubt the rank and file want a PST in Alberta of like, hey, let's make stuff cost more. Like, I seriously doubt that. But this is what happens when you get all of these academic and nerd types, and I'm including myself in that. Okay, I think I'm among friends here. But you concentrate them in a union headquarters, Gage, and you get them dreaming up things like alternative budgets. And their alternative budget says, we should have a sales tax. Now, they're so scared to come out with this stuff sometimes because it's such a third rail Okay, it is like political suicide to bring up a PST in Alberta. They've started coding their language. They're like, we should catch up with other provinces' tax policies. That means a sales tax, because Alberta is the only one without a sales tax. In fact, we're so vehement about it, we have a Taxpayer Protection Act. Meaning, if some politician decided that we need a PST in Alberta, for whatever reason, maybe to pay teachers more or add more to the government payroll, they would have to win a referendum. So, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So, wanted to point out that this is coming from the ATA. They've been long campaigning for a PST. What's your over-under, guys? We've only got a couple minutes left here. Do you think that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is going to cave and just impose a PST on people, rip up the Taxpayer Protection Act, and give the teachers union what it wants?
Yeah, let's see any politician try to campaign on making everything about 7% more expensive. Like, Chris, I think as far as Danielle Smith would have a better chance being reelected, promising every Albertan's going to pay a carbon tax.
Yeah.
Like this just isn't happening.
Yeah, it isn't. It isn't. I'm sorry I brought up a tender subject because I know in British Columbia they put that stuff on everything. They don't put it on as much in Saskatchewan, right?
Yeah, restaurant meals, event tickets, children's clothes, snacks at the grocery store. And that includes rider tickets, by the way. And if you're in Saskatchewan, that's a crazy thing to do from the government. But that's the point, right? It's like Saskatchewan's right beside Alberta, which is a really sore reminder for Saskatchewan taxpayers every time you go to Calgary to watch an NHL game or watch the Riders beat the Stamps, if that's happening as well. And then you go to buy all the things you want while you're there because it's 6% less expensive because they aren't paying that sales tax. So I think that's the message from Saskatchewan taxpayers is, hey, Albertans, you guys got it pretty good. Don't mess this one up.
We'll try not to. We got to wrap up here, Carson. But really quick, British Columbia is so bloodthirsty for its PST back in 2003 or 2004, around then. When they found shoppers from BC coming into Alberta, they tried to shake down Alberta retailers to take pictures of BC drivers' license plates to tattle back to Victoria to charge them PST. Alberta rightfully told them to go pound sand. That's all the time we have for Western Roundup, folks. Be sure to go to taxpayer.com, sign the petitions that matter to you, and join the Tax Fighter Army. Until next time.